You are entering another plane. A plane where we leave behind the logistical issues, the canon continuity, and the Easter eggs. Only here are thematic ideas and symbolic imagery. You are entering a theme between themes. What's in here? Only what you take with you. Welcome back to another episode of Star Wars and Galaxy, watching all the Star Wars we can get our hands on. I'm Eli, and Jacob's still away, so I get to have more fun with a theme between themes. This is our sixth theme between themes episode, and I got a really unique, I think, really interesting approach to a theme between themes that I've never really had on here before. Not to disparage anybody else, we had core themes, we've had character studies, we've had relationship studies, we've had all of that stuff. We've had motifs and stuff like that. This is talking about character trajectories, and I'm very interested in doing this. And for this person specifically, one of the good friend of the show, and I knew that he, like me, is a fan of not just all things canon, but all things Star Wars canon or Legends. So I gave him the option. And if any of my guests for A Theme Between Themes want to take me up on this in the future, I'm happy to. As long as we can find footage for stuff, as long as it's on screen, I'm happy to take them up on this. I told him you could do anything canon or Legends. And he definitely delivered on this one. And so actually, I'm going to bring it in. I'm going to have him explain this because I think he can explain the idea much better than I can. It's good friend of the show, epic conversation competitor, a host of the Nerd Academy podcast, Jarod the Dark Jedi.
Osha and May Anasea and Galen Merrick are all the same character.
Yeah, we titled this episode The Acolyte and the Apprentice. We have watched...
I'm playfully hypersimplifying my opinion here, but yeah, The Acolyte and the Apprentice. Yeah, I love The Acolyte, and I am one of the most in the weeds forever defenders of The Force Unleashed. I think that it is a compelling narrative that does not get its flowers. I think that it is a very fascinating tale that gets underappreciated because of optics and a weird fan relationship to the media.
Yeah, it's messy. I'm gonna say this off the bat, which is that and I'm sure I've thrown my shade at Galen Merrick, and that is the dude bro version of Galen Merrick. I do not. I played The Force Unleashed. I don't hate the game. I'm not going to go all the way to I love it, but I think it's good. I think it is good. I don't think I like it as much as Jarod does, but I do think it's good. I think it does have value. And by the way, we're going to post. So I'll just say what we watched for today. We got The Acolyte, the final episode of The Acolyte, which I was really hoping...
The titular episode.
Yeah, the titular episode, which I actually was hoping... There was like a leak out earlier that it was going to be called Doom. And I kind of wish they'd stuck with that. But that's just me. But we have The Acolyte, episode 8, the climactic finale. I've watched clips from Gamers Little Playground, the channel we always use for video game cutscenes on this show, of The Force Unleashed, using the light side ending, which is canon to the Legends version of the story, as confusing as that sounds.
Yeah, the thing with The Force Unleashed, and you and I talked about this a lot off air and in preparation for this, obviously the game itself and the cutscenes therein that's the story. One of my many strong opinions about The Force Unleashed is that you've not experienced that story until you've read or listened to the novelization. I think it's so... It truly is so baffling, the amount of... And I'm going to keep this brief, because God knows I could talk about this for hours.
And by the way, I just want to mention before Jarod does that, and this is a promise I'm willing to keep whenever we get there, which we're at about 7.6 BBY in a galaxy right now, but we will be doing a season on not only The Force Unleashed, but I think I'll probably drag Jacob through The Force Unleashed too as well. And you are invited, and so is our friend Buck O'Brien.
You should just let Buck and I be like the special guest hosts for that whole season.
I'm tempted.
Just let me and Buck cook. Let us take you to school with The Force Unleashed. But No, there's so many weird different versions of the Force Unleashed. That's less the case with the Force Unleashed 2, but no, but the Force Unleashed, the Xbox version and the Wii version and the Nintendo DS version, like they are all ostensibly the story of Galen Merrick, Darth Vader's secret apprentice, and how that secret apprentice accidentally started the Rebel Alliance and gave his life to save it. In the macro, they are all the same story. But there are so many weird, specific nuances between all the different versions that really do affect the thematic, like a lot of like specific thematic things in the story. And so for me, I treat the Force Unleashed novelization as my quote unquote canon version of it, just because there's a lot more character stuff in there that really shapes it, that gets lost
Yeah.
in the shuffle of the game and everything.
I will say that is actually one of my chief complaints of the game, is that, and I'm glad to hear that it is more addressed in the novel, which is that the character work for Galen Merrick is a lot more subtle than I'd like it to be. Like, I think actually now, even making a comparison, which, and I'm gonna summarize and we'll get launched into this when we do, but making the comparison to the Jedi games, I think they telegraph what Cal is feeling and thinking very well.
Yeah.
And I don't think they get that as well in Force Unleashed.
If I had my druthers, I would love to see a Force Unleashed remaster or remake. Because I truly do think, just because the sensibilities of video game storytelling have evolved so much. And that's not to say that there weren't just absolute masterpieces in terms of narrative being made back in 2008 and before that. But we get like a prestige drama movie in at least like one or two video games per year. Between your Last of Us's and the God of War and your more genre stuff. But yeah, no. So I use the novel, and there's gonna be a lot of specific character stuff I pull from the novel in this conversation, and I highly recommend it to anybody who is even willing to be Force Unleashed curious.
Yeah, no, I'm now interested. I will say that I've been playing another game, I think written, by the writer of this game, Hayden Blackman.
Hayden Blackman.
I've been playing through it. It just got remastered actually itself. And
Is
that's
it Bounty Hunter?
Yeah.
I always forget that Bounty Hunter was a Blackman joint. I've never actually played Star Wars Bounty Hunter.
I hadn't either. Jacob and I covered it for In a Galaxy much, much earlier, and I will give credit to friend of the show, Michael McCoy, who I remember when you both were on a video game stream for Bombadcast. He was saying that the controls for that game are really annoying. And even with the remastered version, which I think made the controls probably a lot better, I'll admit he was right. Story's still genius, though.
You can talk all you want about your little Bounty Hunter game. Talk to me once you've played Obi-Wan. Talk to me once you've played that fucking inspired nightmare when it comes to Star Wars video game controls. You don't have a camera. You do not have a camera, and people will shoot at you from behind. You will die.
But yeah, I'm gonna quickly do a summary of both of them. I will put the timestamps of what I watched specifically for The Force Unleashed in the description of this episode. But yeah, in The Force Unleashed, we meet Galen Merrick, the secret apprentice of Darth Vader, trained from a very young age to be the secret assassin of the Sith Lord, whose sole purpose, as we find him training with his training droid Proxy, is to assist Darth Vader in eventually taking out his own master, Darth Sidious. Vader and Galen plan an assassination attempt against Sidious, which fails as soon as Sidious figures out exactly what's going on. Vader then stabs Galen Merrick, whose codename, by the way, is Starkiller, manages to salvage what's left of his apprentice with cybernetic implants or something like that. And Galen awakes later.
The book is aggressively vague about what the fuck Vader actually did.
I was gonna say, I don't know what it is, but yeah, awakens later with Vader explaining that this was all his plan to make it seem like to the Emperor he was doing something when he wasn't actually really doing anything. So then Vader attacks Galen Merrick with going out and seeking high-profile enemies of the Emperor and the Galactic Empire, and gathering them all together to stir up some trouble, so that while the Emperor is paying attention to that, he and Galen can actually move in for the kill this time. He goes to Bespin, where he finds a Jedi that he once confronted a while ago named Ram Koda, who had survived Order 66 due to using a private militia instead of a clone army, and gets Koda to be a sort of mentor to him, as well as gathering the trust of rebellious politicians like Bail Organa, Mon Mothma, and Luthen Garbelidless. But he gathers them together on Corellia, where Vader storms the first meeting of the Rebel Alliance and takes all of the Rebel leaders capture, and then leaves Galen to die out in the snow. He and his pilot girlfriend Juno Clips go to the Death Star that is still under construction to rescue the Rebel leaders imprisoned on the Death Star, with Galen having a turn to the light of sorts. They get to the Death Star. Galen storms the Death Star, going through a sequence through the Death Star firing chamber that totally wasn't copied in Jedi Survivor, and storms the Death Star, defeating Vader and somehow holding off Palpatine. I should admit somehow there, but anyway, holding off Palpatine to buy the Rebel leaders enough time to escape, saving the hope of the rebellion, which uses his family crest as their symbol.
Pause.
Yeah.
Like I said, I will defend the Force Unleashed until the day I die. The family crest shit is so fucking stupid.
It kind of is, yeah.
That is like the one thing I see people who like shit on the Force Unleashed be like, that part was cool. I'm like, that's the dumbest part of this whole story.
It's a little strange, but anyway, in the Acolyte, Osha puts on the stranger's mask and opens herself up to the dark side of the Force for the first time, having powers that even surprise the stranger. In there, May is captured on Sol's ship, and Sol reveals he's bringing May to Brendok to try and end all of this and explain to the Jedi what happened, where it all began, and proves to the Jedi that the emergence he was sensing on Brendok was indeed real. Osha and the stranger have to share a ship to get to Brendok, where she senses that May is going to be, and she also senses that May is going to eventually kill Master Sol. As the stranger and Osha are getting off of whatever world they are, they are watched by a mysterious figure who we'll absolutely get to later, because as I've told many people, including on Jared's stream when this episode happened, I screamed so loud. And plus he has thematic relevance to this episode. From a cave. Osha, May, the stranger, and Sol get to Brendok, where the Sol eventually duels the stranger to a stalemate until May forces Sol to confess what he did on Brendok, including accidentally murdering their mother and charging in without really understanding what he was doing, and getting all of the Jedi involved because of his attachment to Osha. Osha overhears all of this and asks Sol if this is true. The stranger begs May to give in to her anger and kill Sol. However, May refuses, only wanting Sol to admit what he did and not actually make him suffer for it. But then Osha steps in and force chokes her old master to death. As she does, the crystal in the lightsaber of Sol that she is holding violently bleeds a bright crimson red as she fully embraces the power of the dark side. More Jedi are coming to Brendok, and the not twins, and the stranger can sense that, so Osha takes up the stranger's offer of becoming his new Sith apprentice, as he wipes May's memory to keep the trail cold when the Jedi eventually find it. the stranger's former master, Vernestra Rowe, leads a task force to Brendok, where they do indeed find the amnesia-ridden May and take her back to the Jedi Temple, blaming everything that happened in the past 8 episodes on Master Soul, who Vernestra apologizes to the corpse of before she lies up a storm, eventually going to the Grand Master of the Jedi Order for help in this complicated situation. I don't want to do. We're not going to do Yoda
yeah,
here.
I love how you realized halfway through that sentence, you were like, "Oh no, oh god, oh."
I'm like we see the fucker's ears in this. We're not doing this. We see his ears, no voice, nothing. We see more Plagueis than him. Let's not do this here.
Just saying.
But yeah, those are the 2 things we're looking at. Which I watched the Acolyte first. I think Jarod, did you do TFU first?
I was going through the novel throughout the week, and then I watched the episode right before we started.
Okay, so yeah, maybe we do the Acolyte first just because in timeline, I know there are different timelines, but
yeah,
in timeline it's first. Yeah, this is like I was on all of Jarod. I managed my way into becoming the unofficial co-host of the after shows on the Nerd Academy podcast for the Acolyte. So Jarod and I, at least I think we know each other's thoughts on this show pretty well. And this is don't get me wrong, I loved Night. I loved both Destiny and the 7th one, which is called
Choice.
Okay, that is Choice. Okay, yeah. I was saying Choice. I'm like, that didn't sound right. I loved all of those. This is my favorite episode of the season because of how well they landed that damn plane.
No, absolutely. It's incredible. And again, you have to take the show in its entirety. It's why I was like, it's all of their journeys and the way that they parallel each other so well, but you pick the end point, this is a place to start. And with Osha and May, so much of their story is about identity. And so much of it is about what we choose to be, what is foisted upon us. There is this element of, if I believe I am this thing for long enough, I will become it. That I think is really important and really much, very much is like a through line that will bridge these 2 stories. But yeah, no, I think that one of the main important things here is that there is this really fraught master-apprentice relationship that is very complicated, that is built on I don't want to say one-sided in the case of Osha and Soul, but a very unbalanced relationship of just, I don't want to say fanatical, but like very fervent fealty to the master and an idealization of the master, while the master is categorically not telling the whole truth, is allowing and is conscious of, if not actively participating in allowing the student to not fully know where they come from.
Yeah, and Leslie Headland has been talking up a storm about her show, which go girl, you talk about your show.
Talk your shit.
But the interesting thing about the Acolyte, I think this is done very well, is we as Star Wars fans are not blinded to the manipulations of the Sith. The manipulations of the Sith happen all the fucking time. That's what they're known for. But the manipulations of the Jedi are far less common because, of course, they're ostensibly the good guys.
But they're not above it either.
Yeah, that doesn't mean that any singular Jedi or the Order as a whole cannot succumb to it. And this is one of those cases. And I actually think that Soul actually did a not only decent job at manipulating, even if he wouldn't himself call it that, Osha, but like all of the Jedi around him.
Yeah.
It becomes very clear that even Vernestra, who is a senior member of the Order, a member of the Jedi Council, somebody that Soul clearly respects, doesn't really know the full story.
No.
Until it's far too late.
She is over a century his senior. She absolutely has rank over him and just about everybody in the order until he is held weirdly accountable and has his frame job put on him that of this meek, unassuming, kind-hearted, empathetic, wizened teacher, when in reality, and again, it's multiple truths and certain point of view and all of that, like that is who Soul is. He is also very myopic. He has a selfish streak to him. He has a self-important streak to him that makes him very complicated and makes him very hard to parse out.
And
And
he's such a great and rich character, and I'm not gonna talk about a lot of like performance stuff here, but I will just say that wouldn't have worked so well if Lee Jung Jae wasn't selling it constantly.
yeah, no, he acted his ass off. And I think that again, to start to begin the process of building bridges.
Yeah,
The insane thing that I have to say to begin this conversation that is going to be like the bridge that you need to be ready to walk over is that Soul and Darth Vader play the same role here. And preparing mentally for Soul and Darth Vader to be next to each other in this conversation.
That's very interesting. I see where you're coming from with this. But I really appreciate, I will just say, because if we're looking at Soul and Vader playing the same role, then that means that on some level, I'm not saying they're the exact same, but the role of Ram Koda and the Stranger are equated. And what
in a very weird way, yeah.
And what I love about that so much, especially because of these two divergent paths, and I think that a lot of this, just because of the internet and nuance and stuff, is like forgotten. Just because the Stranger has shown Osha what she thinks she wants, and what I think at that point she does want, does it mean that that's always going to be that way?
No.
With Coda,
he's giving her a full picture.
Yeah, with Coda, what I thought was so remarkable was, with fairly little screen time, honestly, that I saw, he was able to unravel all of that brainwashing from Vader.
Yeah. He's able to point Galen in the right direction and just let Galen come to the right conclusion.
Yeah, he does a remarkable job of that. But
which is similar to what the Stranger does, where he asks the right questions to Osha that he knows that how she will answer them for herself, and he frames the questions in a very particular way and just lets that snowball roll downhill. And Ram Koda does a similar thing.
Yes, but I will say the difference between the two of them is that Ram's is such a strong foundation that Galen, not half an hour later in story time, is ready to sacrifice himself for the very thing he once opposed. And I very much believe that the Stranger's manipulations are a house of cards.
I think, much like any other Sith indoctrination, yes, it is a house of cards, but it is a house of cards that the manipulee will very start to glue down themselves, to just fully give themselves over to that house of cards and just buy into the whole thing. And this is going to be another one of the first instances of this is why I love the novel, is that because there does very much come a point in the novel where Galen is going to want to start a rebellion. I do want to fuck Vader over. And it's the beginnings of Galen realizing he is having very light side thoughts, but not knowing what that means or feels. And it is a very fascinating insight to him because, again, it feels like he goes, oh, I serve Vader. I serve Vader. We will destroy the Emperor. I serve Vader. I serve Vader. I serve Vader. Vader fucks him over a second time. And now I am a Jedi Knight.
Maybe I don't serve Vader anymore.
Where in the novel, it's very much framed as him like slowly becoming disillusioned with this whole thing. Very fascinatingly gives Galen the opportunity, and it gives the audience the opportunity to get into Galen's head when he returns to Felucia and Raxus Prime, where he has to go, oh, I came here. I removed crucial pieces of the puzzle that kept the Empire from coming here, and now it is so much worse.
Yeah.
And recognizing like the Empire's kind of destroying everything. And him having these realizations of like with Maris Brood, whenever he faces off with her, he has this moment where he's like, I should kill you because you're reprehensible. And as he's considering that, he watches the mirror slowly turn back to face him and come to grips with, oh, okay. We're the same person. Fuck.
Yeah.
Which I like a lot. And again, here with this idea, Osha is sold a lie about what happened on Brendock. Osha is under the impression that May starting a fire single-handedly led to the death of her coven, when that's simply not the case. She has no idea what happened to her mother. She does not understand or recognize or appreciate that Soul dealt a death blow to her personally. And it is a hard truth. And again, to connect it back to the Force Unleashed here, because this is like, it is weird that I am accidentally like bucking the format here, and I apologize for that, but it's
No,
like easier to
it's
kind of
fine.
like
It's fine.
hop back and forth. Galen actively represses the memory of meeting Vader, and like through the Force, very similarly to what Kymir does to May by the end, does to himself to forget where he came from. And it is not until he goes to Kashyyyk to rescue Princess Leia that he goes in, he is drawn to his old home on Kashyyyk. And he goes in and he has a very potent Force vision in there. And in that vision, he sees, and he has a lot of visions whenever he's incapacitated when Vader betrays him the first time. And he has visions in the old hut, and he has visions as he's meditating before he goes to rescue the fledgling rebellion. But when he goes into his old home, he is catapulted into experiencing the day Vader came to Kashyyyk through Vader's perspective, and watches as Vader mows down all these Wookiees and fights his father to the death, and relives the moment where Galen disarms Vader as a child through Vader's eyes. And as Galen exits reliving this memory through somebody else's perspective, his immediate knee-jerk reaction is the same way Osha reacts to hearing Soul is responsible. It is this refutation of, if this is true, if everything I believe about myself if this story I was told is false, that means that how I defined myself is false. And Galen immediately goes to this place. And again, this is not depicted in the games whatsoever. But he has this realization. He's like, that's not true. I don't need to tell myself some creation myth for me to have value as a person. I have value as Darth Vader's apprentice. And then the vision continues, and then this is, and you and I alluded to this earlier before we started recording, where the book does play with the idea of the Sith Stalker, the dark side ending of the game, of Lord Starkiller. And Galen has this vision, which is depicted in the Jedi Temple DLC for the first game, where Galen becomes the Sith Stalker in this vision, and he has to fight the true Jedi version of himself. And it goes to this real, and again, one of those ways that that Osha and Galen are very similar is that they both have very strong connections to the symbolism of the lightsaber, where Osha has the Soul handing her the saber as a child that she then takes and corrupts as she kills Soul. Galen has this very fascinating moment where he's fighting where he is manifesting as the ultimate evil version of himself and fighting the ultimate good version of himself, he goes to land the death blow with again, like the crazy lightsaber with the claws on it and shit. He goes to land that death blow, and for whatever reason, the lightsaber glances off. And for those who know, like Lord Starkiller, like a dark side ending Starkiller, has this like huge belt full of lightsabers. He's got Vader's, he's got his original lightsaber, he has Ram Koda's, he has Shakti, whatever. And there's this moment where he is trying to kill the Jedi version of himself. And he's okay, mine didn't work. And when I stabbed him with mine, it shut it off. So it just turns into the Lord Starkiller in this vision on Kashyyyk, just taking every single lightsaber off his belt and trying to stab the good version of himself with it, until he realizes there's only one lightsaber he hasn't used yet, and it is Jedi Starkiller's lightsaber. And that's the one that does it. And that it is you have to kill the idea of the Jedi. And that's when we get the moment that we see in both versions of the game where Kento Merrick's Force Ghost appears and does the whole, I never wanted this for you. I never wanted any of this for you. I'm sorry, son. And that is the moment, or in the book, in the games, it's I'm sorry, son. In the books, this is the moment we find out Galen's name. In the book, it is, I'm sorry, I never wanted any of this for you. I'm sorry, Galen. And that is the first time that Starkiller hears his own name in 19 years. And it's fucking heartbreaking. And he comes to this realization, and it's after he is finally exposed to it that he is starting to think about walking the path of the light, and he starts to second guess just about everything, but very slowly. And it is this slow roll to accepting that he is not meant to walk the path of the dark. In a similar way that Osha is so fervent about walking the path of the light that it is once she is told the truth. It is once again, if Coda is the stranger, once the stranger starts asking the right questions, and where Coda doesn't so much ask the right questions so much as he just puts Galen in a position where he has to look the Empire in the eyes, and it starts to whittle away at his loyalty to it. Where the stranger was asking Osha, oh, why do you care about Jackie so much? She never could have cared about you in the same way. Don't you want to be able to tap into these emotions? They're so human, they're so raw, they're so real, they're so good. And it's asking all these right questions. And then Osha, much like Galen experiencing the vision in the hut on Kashyyyk, has that final rug pull of, no, Soul killed her mom. Soul is directly responsible for the death of the entire coven. That is that final push for her. Whereas, again, and as I described it earlier, it's like both characters are on an incline. And they are just pretty much passing each other right in the middle. They can wave through the window and see the other one. That it's happening backwards, where Galen has this realization of, this is not only is this who I am on like a birthright, like my claim to my family level, this is literally where I come from. And Osha, and that is what begins his ability to choose the light side. Whereas Osha has a ripcord pulled on her of that revelation of the story you were told that allowed you to become a Jedi was always built on bullshit, being what catapults her just in terminal velocity into the dark side. I've been yapping for a minute, Eli, so I'm shutting up.
I was just going to say, I think that you've made a potent case about why you chose these two. And I think one of the things that's just so interesting to me is that if we're looking at the two, obviously mentioned earlier, Soul sold this lie to Osha, and so did Vader. And it was both very much about where they came from. It was about their roots, who defined them as an identity. Now I'm thinking of their same gendered parents. Galen about his father, May about Osha about her mother, and about what happened to them. And I don't know, there's like And very much it's difficult because The Force Unleashed is not a complete story. We had two, which was I don't think you. I hope you don't mind me saying this. Rushed, and
Oh no, there's no arguing that
yeah,
it's
a lot of the pieces for me weren't kind of together. And we know there was going to be a third game and all that kind of stuff. And the Acolyte, again, we're recording this before any announcement will or will not be made, but I suspect it is going to be a complete story.
Yeah.
But like where I see if, for example, I'm thinking like if Starkiller had lived, or maybe he lived and maybe it wasn't the
whole
clone, but either way.
conversation for a different day because I have
Yeah,
a full ass conspiracy theory about that.
Yes, I absolutely know that. But I'm just gonna say like right now that maybe it is a clone in the second one, just for simplicity's sake.
For the sake of argument, let's go with what the game tells us.
If Galen survived, I see him basically becoming Cal Kestis, like a version of Cal, renegade Jedi on the run fighting the Empire. And I see that being pretty consistent. Doesn't mean that Galen will never have struggles with the dark side, because he always does, because we all do, and that's a motif common to Star Wars.
It is arguably the point of Force stories.
Yes,
you will never not have to fight the urge.
Yeah, but what I think is so interesting, if we're looking at Osha's journey now, potential journey. And that is why I wanted to bring up Plagueis here. Plagueis sees them as they're going away, as they're leaving the planet. One way or another, for Osha and the Stranger, this is not going to end well. One way or another, the two of them are in some way doomed. Because just like in the beginning of the game of The Force Unleashed, there cannot be 3 Sith, especially not at this time. And we know that Plagueis is going to eventually take a young boy from Naboo on as his real apprentice, on as the one that actually sticks. Very much, there is this, even with these sort of victorious dark side turn for Osha at the end, it is still, for me, tinted with this sense of tragedy. Yeah. Because we know that not only are both of them going to die, but I think it is highly likely that one of them will have to kill the other.
Or that they are both potentially killed by Darth Plagueis.
Yes, but just knowing how the Sith play games with that stuff, and just knowing how the story, I think, could work in this way, I think there is a chance that one of them has to kill the other. And I know who I'm putting my money on. So I think it's just this really, because, and I think that comments on, again, the Sith way is unsustainable. Yeah. If it sounds like
always eat each other. It doesn't matter if you boil it down to just 2, they will eat each other.
Yes, that's the one crucial way Bane was wrong, is because it doesn't matter the number. The Sith will always eat each other alive. And it sounds like I'm harping on this. I am, and and the only reason is because I saw a few too many people applauding the victorious seeming turn to the Sith that Osha has. Not that it's not victorious for the character, but like, and doing stuff like, are the Jedi the bad guys? I'm like, no, Star Wars pretty clearly tells us and shows us, more importantly, that the Jedi are supposed to be the good guys, which is why it hurts so much when they fail.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And the Sith way is inherently unstable and immoral. As great as it is that Osha is finally breaking free of that lie that has held her down for so many years, she is joining forces with a murderer.
Yeah. Yeah, and part of what makes this really fascinating is this fun reversal. I'm talking about Osha a little bit. It's the fact that May ends more similarly than Galen than Osha does, Because again, and it's one of my favorite moments in the Force Unleashed novel, is that as Galen is racing through the Death Star to try to get to where the rebels are to rescue everybody. It was a gross like hiccup. I apologize. Galen has this moment of realization of, and this is the beginning of it, where he goes, this battle station's capable of killing billions. I should destroy it. And then he stops and he goes, I've been killing too much. I don't want to I don't want to have to kill anybody anymore. I don't want to keep doing this. I want to quit. I don't want to. And he has this moment where he truly kicks the can down the road to Luke Skywalker. Like, obviously having no idea he exists.
Yeah.
But he has this moment and he's, I have way too much blood on my hands to comfortably blow this whole place up.
With
a
with
better
free
man,
conscience. Yeah.
yeah, like a better man than me can do this with way more resolve than I can. And that's the beginning of that realization where he starts to really center himself in the light. Not that May necessarily turns to the light side, but he arrives at this conclusion with Vader when they first start fighting, like for real, before the Emperor, where Galen has this moment where he goes, I don't hate you. I pity you. And he has this moment where he really gets into Vader's head. And this continues the Vader is soul.
Yeah.
Vader and Soul occupy a similar place in the narrative, where when they're fighting, Galen says to Vader, I remember what happened to me now. You took me from my father because you envied his ability to have a son. Where did that come from for you? And Galen just no-scopes Vader's trauma of thinking he lost his child. And just no-scopes that. He has no context for it. He has no... Again, it's just so fascinating. It happens in the same chapter as him foreshadowing Luke destroying the Death Star. But, like, Galen just starts to, like, really emotionally, intuitively go, you took me because you wanted a kid. That's why you took me. Fuck the Emperor, fuck power, fuck Sith, fuck all of this. You wanted a kid.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't have yours.
And that reminds me so much of the ending with Osha and Soul. Soul took her because he wanted a daughter.
Yeah, he wanted an apprentice. He was so convinced that it was so important for him to get to pass down the Jedi teachings. Again, it's one of those things where I think a lot of people want to put, not to say that Soul as a character can't be criticized for his moral failings. He should be. That's the point of the show. But I think people put more malice and like villainy on Soul than is there. I do not think Soul is a consciously gleeful manipulator, like mentally abusive, whatever. He's really myopic to the point where it is toxic to other people.
That's the thing actually about both Soul and the Stranger. And I think that Leslie Headlands talked about this, which is that nobody thinks they're the villain.
No.
Everybody thinks they're doing the right thing. And I think that applies equally to Soul and the Stranger. Where as Soul was a deeply flawed, yet ultimately on the good side man who made some tragic and terrible mistakes.
Yeah.
And as the Stranger was a morally bankrupt projection of the dark side who happened to push a few buttons, who pushed some buttons the right way. I don't think, there was a bit of time where I think Leslie Headland sending the review that she didn't think the Stranger was manipulating Osha. And I was like, at first I was like, I'm not so sure about that. But I've come around to it just because I just do think that, again, like Soul, he was doing what he genuinely thought was the right thing to do.
Yeah, I think it gets complicated as to how we define manipulation. if you hooked Chimere up to a lie detector while he was saying all of that shit, I do not think it would detect falsehood. I think
No.
he also knows that he is pointing her in a very specific, convenient direction for him, though.
Yes.
And again, you start to split hairs and get very pedantic. But the fact that May, who spends this whole show an assassin, a killer, bringing the Jedi she believes murdered her coven in cold blood to justice, to stop, look at the main culprit, look him in his eyes, and say, I don't need to kill you. Frankly, I don't want to kill you.
Yeah, that is actually
I want
maybe...
you to take responsibility. And Galen arriving at the conclusion, fighting Vader, of, I don't need hatred to kill you, because I realize now I don't hate you. I think you live a horrible, pathetic life. And you, like me, were made to serve a vile maniac because there was a part of you that was missing and a part of you that was frankly taken away. And Galen hits a similar beat to throw in our guest character of this conversation, Cal Kestis again, where he hits what I am well documented saying as my favorite line of dialogue from Cal Kestis. It's time to set you free. I forgot that Galen said that to Vader.
Holy shit, that's good.
That Galen was like, I'm not going to kill you with anger in my heart. I need to stop you. And a happy byproduct of that is you don't have to live like this anymore. That's really heavy. That's really, really heavy. And I think that, again, he and May end in a similar place. Yes, Galen is still coming at this from a place of, I will kill you if I have to. But he's in active combat with Darth Vader at that point. And even then, when he defeats Vader, he's, I don't need to kill you. Like, he has that moment. Again, it is explained so well in the game where he's like, yeah, I could kill Vader. I could kill him right now. I've defeated him. I defeated Darth Vader. I defeated my master. I can kill. I don't want that. But no, I don't need to kill you. He has this moment, much like May, where again, his internal monologue is, I proved to you by defeating you that your worldview is incorrect. I humiliated you, and I put you in a situation where you had to look in the mirror and come to grips with your own humanity. That is enough for me.
There's I'm looking up a transcript of the episode, just because I remember you talking about this, when we were talking a little bit about the first episode of the Acolyte, which I think is both, this thing is both true, Galen and May in this sense. I remember you were talking about the first episode of the Acolyte, and one of your only criticisms from the time, which I think was fair until we, of course, learned more information, was that the speech that May gave in Dara felt very posturing and weird. Attack me, Jedi. Oh, Jedi don't attack the unarmed. Yes, you do.
I didn't mind that part. It was the attack me with all of your strength.
Yeah. Attack me with all of your strength. Yeah, all that kind of stuff. And what I think is interesting, because very much I think that Galen, throughout the beginning of the first half of the game, has that mindset, even if he's not putting into that terms, of I am vengeance. I am Vader's hand. This very dark, edgy vibe to him. And what I think is so interesting, Galen does this, but I really appreciate how May does this, is around the end of day, she starts to realize, why am I doing this? What happened on Breaddock was horrible, and I'm never going to forgive anybody for this, but why am I doing this? It's the George Lucas thing. I just remembered, I don't know how this is back in my mind. It's the clip from one of the many Revenge of the Sith documentaries George did, where he was talking to Hayden, and he was saying, at every moment, there's a little part of Anakin that is going, what am I doing? And then he justifies, I'm doing it for this, I'm doing it for Padme, I'm doing it for us. But there's always a little part of his mind going, what am I doing? And for me, I think like Day and subsequently like some parts of episode 6 and episode 8 of the Acolyte is her running up against the wall of what am I doing? Of her like the dog catches the car. Of wait, yeah, it was bad, but I'm just like killing like an automaton here.
Yeah.
What's really going on here? And
yeah,
I
and
think
like I said, Galen hits that on the Death Star. Galen starts to hit that as because oh my god, and this kind of ties back into one of the other things I love of the if I say I am this thing long enough, maybe I will be it kind of idea throughout these stories. It's something that I think Galen Merrick also shares with Kylo Ren. That Galen has this moment where so what is commonly referred to as the Sith robes outfit in the game, where it's like the long black flowing tunic with the long cape with the hood on it. Galen is in the book is given that when he wakes up on the Empirical after being rebuilt, whatever the fuck that means, by Darth Vader.
Again, we're not focusing on the little details. I said it in the prologue to the show, but it's been so long since I played this game. The ship that he's rebuilt on is called the Empirical.
Yes.
Jarod, you have to admit that in some ways, this game, much like you, will never escape the accusation.
It's not a single accusation. All of it's true and all of it's good. Eli, one day you're going to realize you're dealing with somebody who will terminally double the fuck down on everything.
An Imperial ship called the Empirical.
Because it's a mobile science outpost. Empirical evidence. Empirical research. By the Imperials. It's Star Wars. It's never been subtle. Fuck you. The motherfucker flies a ship called the Rogue Shadow. What do you want from me here?
Oh. I was also forgetting about that. Actually, that is a good time as any if you're willing to go here to talk about something that I have.
Before we do that, I just finished the thought that got me there.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's given these Sith robes, and then when he fights, when he goes back to Felucia, and he fights Maris Brood, and he kills the Bull Rancor, which in the book, he lets the Bull Rancor eat him a little bit and then uses Force Repulse to blow its head up. And never say it's edgy and dumb, because that's how Kylo Ren basically killed a Zillo Beast. But I have a type, and I've never said that I don't.
I'm impressed you remember Kylo and the Zillo Beast. I'm very impressed you remember Kylo and the Zillo
That's
Beast.
how I'm going to take my fucking belts off of Alden. But note how he said my belts. But like he gets back on the Rogue Shadow, a ship with an objectively cool name, and he's looking in his closet, and he has this moment where Vader has given me so many outfits, but every single one is either me dressing like a Sith or dressing up like a Jedi. And he has this moment where he's like, to show the people I'm recruiting to build this rebellion that I'm serious, and maybe I should start dressing like a Jedi. And it's the beginning of a switch flipping of, if I pretend to be this thing long enough, maybe I'll become it. Because I do think on some subconscious level, Galen's, I actually want to be a Jedi, and this is giving me permission to play at it in a similar way that, like,
let's try it out.
Yeah, and this in a similar way that Osha and May are both dressed up, like, are both end up wearing Rey cosplays. By the end of the fucking show, they're both basically wearing, like, versions of outfits that Rey Skywalker wore at one point, if not more conceptual than her actual wardrobe. But again, and I think it's all part of that, again, it's all about identity. It's all about what you are given and what is taken away from you by two very different types of mentors you have in your life. But what were you going to ask me, Eli?
I think that's beautiful, and I like these symmetries between clothings. There's one other aspect that has been barely mentioned by either of us in this, and I think it's like the last major thing I want to cover, really. I'm gonna look if anything else, but yeah, anyway. So it is about the two things that I struggle with the most, some of the most, when it comes to both The Force Unleashed and The Acolyte. And it's always something I've struggled a little bit with Star Wars because it's not what I go to Star Wars for, but it's there, which is the romance. Which is very much, I will just disclose this at the very beginning. Enemies to lovers has never been my thing. I've never been into that story type. I am not a big, I've expressed this, I'm not a huge Raylo person, and it's never been my thing. I'm not like trying to disparage anybody who's into that. I've never been one who's
That's
interested
not your
in
cup
that.
of tea.
Yeah, and so
Most people don't give a fuck about Ochi of Bestoon. Like,
yes, that's most people are not at the time of this recording planning on getting his blade tomorrow. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful day. Anyway, and I really hope, and I'm sure it does, the novelization expands this in some way, because the ending scene of The Force Unleashed is Rom Coda telling Juno Eclipse that the one bright spot Galen had in the galaxy, amid all the darkness, was her. Which, to me, Galen and Juno fell in love because they did. Based on what I see in the game, it feels like that's one of the most, to me, contrived parts of the game is Galen and Juno fall in love because they're the male and female lead, and that's what they do.
I'm trying to find the right way to phrase this because I don't want to be glib in how I say this. The book does not shy away from what you just described. However, it puts a lot more meat on the bone for Juno Eclipse and does a really good job of letting the reader go, this is why you two were drawn to each other. Because a lot of it fills in these blanks of Galen and Juno at the beginning of the story are both fanatically devoted to the Empire in their own weird ways. You know, obviously, Galen is murdering Imperials as well as any insurgents or servants of the light side indiscriminately, but he is still fundamentally like killing the Emperor is the best thing for the Empire.
Yeah.
My master will be a better Emperor than Palpatine.
Yeah.
So there's that. Juno is very much in that place of I'm an Imperial. I've been an Imperial my whole life. I was a kid when the Republic fell, and I grew up in this. And then whenever Vader betrays Galen the first time, and again, we're not going to get hung up on how fucking convoluted and insane this story is, because I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say that it isn't, dear listener. But I think there's a point where Juno is branded a traitor for being one of Galen's allies, where she's one of the patsies, and she is stripped of her rank. She has her name dragged through the mud. She is tortured and treated inhumanely for 6 months aboard the Empirical, a ship that also has a cool, objectively awesome name. And she comes to the realization that the Empire can get fucked so quickly because she is not, because her personhood is not staked on the Empire. Her identity is. And I think they are drawn to each other because Juno sees in Galen how passionate he is, how loyal he is. Even when she doesn't realize he's still serving Vader, she sees like, you want to make a change, whether or not it's out of revenge or whatever. You recognize shit's got to change. And I think that Juno is attracted to that resolve in Galen, where Galen is super attracted to Juno's cold-headedness by her ability to be water a little bit. And also, she's 20 and he's 19, and they've both been cooped up and are super repressed. And
Yeah.
they both hi, bisexual guy, they both look like that.
Yeah.
You're living in close quarters on this tiny little ship, and you got all
And
these
and
big
Galen has basically, I will say, in defense of the game, Galen has basically no companions other than Juno this one time. So like, Proxy and Vader are pretty much the only two faces he consistently sees.
yeah.
And frankly, Proxy, he doesn't even consistently see it. Honestly, I will just caveat for a second and say that Proxy legitimately might be, and this is not a diss on the rest of the game, my favorite part of the game, just because I really love the idea. Like I think it's another area where both of us got started. My little versus series brain really loves Galen fighting Obi-Wan Kenobi or Darth Maul and stuff like that. I just really think that's cool.
Here's a little nugget from the novel. One of the best lines of dialogue moments in the game, period, is when Vader appears to Galen because he uses Proxy, who's like this hologram droid.
Yeah.
And he uses him as a holo projector as well and talks to Vader in that scene. And then Vader goes away. And every time Proxy has to become Vader for a transmission, he's just like, it gives Proxy the heebie jeebies every time for some reason. And this one time, Proxy just says it out loud. He's like, I hate being him. And Galen goes, I think he hates it too. In the book, Galen gets that call from Vader right after he gets done sparring Proxy, while Proxy is Anakin Skywalker.
Ooh.
So Galen Merrick is fighting Anakin Skywalker. He defeats Proxy as Anakin.
And then has to talk to Proxy unknowingly as Anakin.
And then Proxy transitions. He does not like go and turn into
Oh no,
Proxy
he
and
transitions
then turns into
directly from
Vader.
Anakin.
He goes
to Vader.
Anakin straight into Vader
Oh
in the
no.
book.
Oh no.
And I hate being him. And again, Galen has no idea. He's like, the answer to why he hates being Darth Vader literally just happened in front of you. You watched the change happen.
It's that great flash, maybe one of my favorite shots of that entire show in Ahsoka, of Anakin walking out in the field with the clones, and then flash Vader. Oh, with a trick of the light, you didn't see anything. Beautiful stuff.
But yeah, no. So yeah, again, like the romance between Galen and it was Galen and a J name, and I almost said Jin. The romance between Galen and Juno, it's a little contrived, but they both have so much personality in the novel that you can see how they got there for the most part. On the topic of enemies to lovers, oh, buddy, you're in for a fucking treat. And that's all I'm going to say. But I like it in theory. The thing that I love about Oshamir and Raylo, and I say this as a Raylo, I say this as somebody who will go to bat for the fact that most Raylos are not mean, weird people who harass people on the internet. I think it's shitty and reductive to be like, oh, all these Raylos fucking suck. It's a handful of them, and there's a handful of crazies, as there are in every group of people. There's a handful of crazies who are really loud and annoying. But and I've never been one for shipping. That's never been something that I was ever super, super into. However, the reason why I think Raylo and Oshamir are so potent is that they are not just a ship. They are not just a hopeful romantic end game. They are a lens through which to dissect and deconstruct the narrative before you. Raylo, this is the reason why I got so into Raylo. This is the reason why I ended up forging such great friendships with girls with sabers and the Blue Bantha Milk guys, was this ability to look at Rey and Kylo Ren's relationship and go, why do these two make the other one react the way they do? And the answer to that question is that they are at cross purposes from each other. Kylo Ren is somebody haunted by legacy, who is haunted by expectation, who is burdened by knowing that you are the son and nephew of 3 legendary heroes and the grandson of the most complicated motherfucker to ever walk the galaxy. And Rey begins her journey longing for legacy, longing for a place to belong, longing to say, "This is where I'm from," because she is under the impression that her presumably at the time lowly station in the galaxy is something to be ashamed of, and means that that she will not seek meaning and purpose because she is this in the grand scheme of things, this lowly being. And the journey they both go on that mirrors each other and they reflect each other is that Ben Solo learns what that legacy represents and what it can mean if he wants it to mean something. Where Rey comes to the realization that family legacy is less important than family itself. And Rey, once she's told, "Oh, you wanted to be from a family, you wanted to be from something, you're a Palpatine.
Here you go.
Congratulations."
Here is the worst family
and
to be from.
It's her rejecting that. It's her rejecting the bloodline, as I always will. Fuck all of you. Roman Reigns, welcome back. It's still on site. But Cody Rhodes, she is her rejecting the blood legacy and embracing the family that welcomed her in with open arms.
Yeah.
And that, so, and again, it's that dynamic, in my opinion, that makes Reylo a whole like lens of looking at this narrative through this relationship. And I think a similar thing is happening with Oshimir. I think a similar thing is happening with dissecting the, again, capital S seduction of the dark side. That we are leaning into it being a sexual seduction more than we ever have. And I think that choosing that route allows for Oshimir to become a very beautiful metaphor for what is going on. That it is Osha who has lived this life of thinking she has to repress these emotions, of living a lie, being presented with all the permission in the galaxy to do what she wants, how she wants it, when she wants it, wherever she wants it. And that it is framed as and presented as her being able to let go of a lot of repressed emotions, especially in the way that even though you and I, deeply nerdy people who by all accounts should be celibate because of how much we know about this shit, the common idea is that the Jedi themselves are celibate, right? When no, the Jedi can fuck. It's just weird and complicated about what the Jedi are allowed to feel about fucking. But again, to the layman, when you look at this like monastic group of space wizards, framing it as repressed emotions and bottling it all up, and the dark side as a release of all of those emotions and manifesting that in this grouping of people who, again, look like that, and all of the tension and all that giving in represents in this context, I think it's really strong. And I think Oshimir is the spiritual successor to Reylo in many ways, because it's not just a ship, it's not just an outlet for people to make really fucking horny fan art, which it is, but it is also a lens through which to view the story. The Acolyte runs away with the romance, if we're comparing it to The Force Unleashed. At the end of the day, Juno holds that place in Galen's mind because she represents somebody who was able to complete the journey he could not. Of I started here and then I got better. Where in his mind he's dying as he becomes better. But yeah, I hope any of that was insightful and made sense.
No, I think that's all great. I think it's one of those things that I personally struggle with a lot in Star Wars. I will say that of course, not all. I don't reject all romances. There are some ships that happen that I really appreciate, and some that should happen. But yeah, no, I think that there is a. I think the last thing I want to end with the point of this is that the Force Unleashed is, again, if we take it in the context of its own game, just remove TFU2 for a second. The Force Unleashed ends with a tragedy But it's a tragedy with a silver lining. It's Galen dies, but Galen dies so that the rebellion can live on.
Yeah.
The Acolyte, there is really no silver lining for any of these characters. The Acolyte is everything is covered up. Osha gets what she wants for now, but who knows what the future holds for her. And the Sith keep on Sithing, the Jedi keep on Jediing for now. And I love how those both are the inverse of each other. Again, we're talking about the ships passing with Osha and Galen. And there is a very much, and I know I'm within the minority, at least of our friends, about this, but there is a part of me that is interested, a big part of me that's interested in, because of course, that the Force Unleashed, we both know the Force Unleashed, like the KOTOR games, has both the light and dark endings.
Yeah.
And now, just gotta wonder, because Soul gets some of the truth out to Osha, but he doesn't get nearly all of it.
Because it's too little too late.
Yeah. But what if he did? What if we get a light side ending for Osha?
And we still good. We still good.
No, but it's diverging off.
For sure. Oh, yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that and I understand, by the way, why a lot of the people we work with and our friends and stuff like that don't like a lot of what if stuff. But one of the things that I appreciate is it explains about the fundamental characteristics about these characters. What is static and what isn't? What will always be true in there were like 7 different Jarod in jokes I was gonna try and slip into this episode, and I cannot believe I'm deciding on this one. Look, if we run the simulation 1,000 times,
who is the deadliest warrior?
No, but slightly differently. If we run the simulation 1,000 times, how many times does Osha make this decision? It is is this inherent? Is this what it's a great short story, early science fiction short story, Sound of Thunder. If a butterfly flaps in a different direction, will we get a completely different conclusion to the story? How much of this is inherent to the characters and how much of this is circumstance?
All of it is circumstance. I think that fundamentally what makes Osha snap the way she does is that by the time that Soul is willing to tell her the truth, it is built on the back of 16 years of you had all the time in the world. And by the time that Soul is finally fessing up, it is under the auspice of him seemingly being called out and forced to do it, as opposed to him having a sincere opportunity to go, hey, I think you're old enough to have this conversation. What happened the day we met, or the next night, technically, the night you joined us, was a little bit more complicated than you were ready to hear at the time.
And by all accounts, that she, and this is, I was going to mention this from the Leslie Headland interview, earlier, with that, what is it called? Paternal protectionism or something like that? Like, you weren't ready to hear it then, and I'm not so sure you're ready to hear it now.
Yeah. And I think part of that is Soul not wanting to let Osha see the man behind the myth. I think so much of that is I have built myself up to be this idea to you that I'm not ready for you to see me as a fallible human being. And again, that crux is what fully, fundamentally begins the process of Galen's rise from darkness and Osha's descent into it, is learning the truth at arguably the most inconvenient time in the most inconvenient way. And it's a slow drip for Galen, learning about where he comes from and how, as a coping mechanism, he had to hide that from himself. And for Osha, it's what seems like a forced confession out of Soul.
Yeah. It's this shocking moment of this sounds like a Clone Wars fortune cookie to me. It's not. Oh, that's why it's not a fortune cookie. Okay, never mind. It's biblical. Okay, never mind. The truth will set you free is what I was going with.
Yeah, it sounds like something they'd use anyway.
Yeah, it does. But yeah, it sets, like you said, it sets. I'm going to tie it back all together. It sets the Acolyte and the Apprentice free in wildly diverging opposite directions.
Yeah.
And I think that is, unless you have anything else, I think that is about as good of a place to end it.
I agree. I'm inclined to agree.
It is. But before we go, I do have to ask Jared one very important question, which is, where can everybody find you?
Before I tell you where you can find me, I just want to make sure everybody knows the truth that the woke deep state mob does not want you to know. And that is that the character you're playing as in The Force Unleashed 2 is the original Galen Merrick. It is not a clone. Darth Vader says in the Dark Side ending that he did perfect the cloning process. The whole game hinges on the idea that only Vader knows the truth, and they would not frame it that way if the truth was not Galen is actually the main character of the game. The only successful clone is the evil Apprentice, who would have been the villain of The Force Unleashed 3 if I had my way with it. Hint, hint, wink, wink. I've started yet another project I've begun.
Oh, no. Okay, here we go. I will just say very quickly.
What if I wrote The Force Unleashed 3? Anyway.
When we eventually do the Force Unleashed games, which we will, although I'm going to warn you, it's going to be a while. Because... Sure. Jacob has wanted to do Rebels for so fucking long.
Motherfucker, I'll wait.
And I will, and I have, so actually this is a bit of a preview for the rest of the year in a galaxy that I'll say right now. I think we're going to do, we just got off Survivor. We're going to play a little catch up. We're going to do Bad Batch 3 is going to be season 19. Season 20 is going to be, according to certain people I will not name, the greatest thing maybe ever in Star Wars, possibly in the history of mankind. Yes, we are doing a season. And then I want to launch right into all 4 seasons of Star Wars Rebels, because I've told Jacob we're going to do it, and we've frankly waited too long and put it off. The point being, when I inevitably have you and Buck on for TFU and TFU2, we will absolutely litigate this. And I'm actually,
you guys can find me over at the Nerd Academy podcast. You can also find me here for Epic Confrontations. You can check out Pro and Noob, where Mitch692, the YouTube channel for Comic Book Cast, is taking me through Neon Genesis Evangelion. We're about halfway through that, and I'm excited to see how that ends. And obviously, the first 2 full seasons of Ionized Bastards out now on the All Remaining Systems YouTube channel. We are revving up, guys, for season 3, the final season of Ionized Bastards. And all I will say is Michael and I had a very interesting conversation about what we may do for season 3. He and I had our "what do you want to do" conversation last night, and I gave him my notes. I gave him my ideas. And Michael and I came to a really unhinged conclusion as like an obvious thing that we have to do. And I can't wait for you guys.
I am very excited. I've been a fan of Ionized Bastards since the first episode. It'll be a little bit because I'm a bit new to actual play series, but I cannot recommend it enough. I have considered ways to incorporate both of them into both In a Galaxy and Epic Confrontations. I will fully disclose that. But I
don't think I can in good conscience let you do that, seeing as your current singles champion forgets the names and roles of NPCs all the time.
Okay.
I'm not saying that I forgot, but in the event anybody else
somebody forgot. I'm just now remembering. I'm just remembering that moment. That's hilarious. But I will just say, The House Always Wins, which is episode, what is it?
16.
16. I was gonna, yeah. I was like, is it long as Mando seasons? Yeah. The House Always Wins, which is episode 16, the finale of season 2 of Bastards. I was lucky enough to watch what happened live, and holy crap. The Bastards, as they often do, and I hope I'm not I hope this doesn't come off too insulting because I really don't mean it, because I'm just taking from what you've said. Once again, the Bastards have accidentally made their way into an all-time Star Wars story.
Yeah, I'm really proud of the season 2 finale. It was one of the most nerve-wracking experiences I've ever had playing Dungeons and Dragons, Star Wars or not. And yeah, it got really fucking scary for a moment. And
The
if
Bastards
I
finale.
could go back in time and make different choices combatively, I would not, because I know how it ended.
Yeah, no, the Bastards finale, if we're describing with a single line from any Star Wars anything, it would absolutely be Han in the Falcon in the Kessel Run. Thought we were in trouble for a second, but we're fine. Everything's fine.
Everything's fine.
And then something jumps around the other corner.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I can't wait to see what the others on the crew are going to get up to against a certain enemy.
Man,
in the next season.
Listen, I'm going to sound like Alden for a minute. Salvage is 0-2 on us now. I don't know. We had a really interesting conversation, Michael and I, last night. Just a little peek behind the curtain, and we're probably going to be doing like a live stream discussion going into the final season soon. But Michael and I had a conversation where we were talking about one of the most fascinating things about Salvage is the way that he does on a weird level respect the Bastards. He hates them, and he hates everything they represent.
But progressively, he has to give them something because they fuck themselves into situations where they can oppose him.
I think and the phrase "game recognizes game" came up a lot in the conversation Michael and I had last night. And I think on some level, Salvage, who like Fabian was a pit fighter, like 4D is a combat droid, he is able to look at this group of people and go, that's not enough. That is nowhere near enough. And even in private, where the Bastards get to eavesdrop on one conversation Salvage has with the Death Chemist, where Salvage is, they're going to come fuck this up, right? Don't underestimate them. They are crafty. They are wiry.
Yeah, and then the Death Chemist totally, spoiler, underestimates them and pays the ultimate price for it.
My bad on the ultimate price part. But yeah, no. So Ionized Bastards is incredible. It is the project I'm the most proud of. Like, the Nerd Academy podcast is obviously my baby, and it's not like for a second I'm like, oh, it's fine. I take a lot of pride and I own what I've done with TNAP, but Ionized Bastards is just so special. And every season, every time I do an RPG with Michael, I walk away from it going, I'm going to chase this high forever. And then Michael finds a way to let me have the moment where I'm like, I'm going to chase this high forever.
Yeah, no, he's an incredible storyteller, actually. I will say he has some incredible stories he's written on his own. I've talked with him about some potential RPG ideas that he's had beyond Bastards, because he has been considering some stuff. And if I ever get the chance to participate, which I certainly hope I did, beyond that character I ran into you guys as in season 2, remember that? If I ever do get a chance to do that, I will gladly partake in that, because he tells great stories and it looks phenomenal.
Absolutely. I'm so excited. But yeah, that's where you guys can find me at.
Yeah. All right, yeah, that's going to be it for this episode of Star Wars and Galaxy, A Theme Between Themes. Next episode of Star Wars and Galaxy, Theme Between Themes, might take a little while because we had to postpone quite a bit, but I do have our next guest, A Theme Between Themes, Episode 7. Where there is light, there must also be darkness. The yin and yang balance. The Ocean and May balance. Where Jarod comes on, we must have a very bomb-bad episode of A Theme Between Themes. So I'm excited to announce that making their debuts on Star Wars in the Galaxy will be...
That's buck wild.
It's crazy. It's absolutely insane.
In the same way that I've only actually been on your podcast twice.
That 3 times, I think. Now.
Twice, yeah.
Before this. But yeah, we've tried to make it work on other... We were supposed to do one part of Obi-Wan Kenobi with Scotty Jarod, but there was an emergency that he had that Force we respect, and had to delay to another point. Yeah, joining for the first times, Jerry Cable, Scotty Jarod. I cannot wait to see what these two guys come up with for this. Knowing them, it could be literally anything, and that amuses me to no end.
It is sad though that like Bombad Cast is gonna end next year.
What bit are you doing?
No, Bombad Cast is gonna end next year because I'm gonna kill one of the hosts in Japan.
Ah, I see. Yeah, we'll cross that bridge when it comes to it. Yeah.
Throw him into Mount fucking Fuji.
I'm all I'm going to say. I'm going to quote one of the great wordsmiths of our time is Taylor Swift. I think I've seen this film before, and I didn't like the ending.
Or to quote one of the other wordsmiths, certified boogeyman. I'm the one that ups the score with him.
All right, that's gonna be it. I didn't figure out a good way to transition out of that. Until next time, may the
Feels
force
like
be
he
with
started
you.
quoting Kendrick. We got 0.5 seconds before there's an Alex Jones joke. We got to get through it. We got to get through it.
All right, yeah. May the force be with you always.
Always.
All right, yeah.